And we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to BWTM Sports. For any new listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I have with me someone that I've known a while, and sort of like I spoke to this individual years ago. When I spoke to this individual years ago, I've known this individual kind of like as long as I've known Don Charles. So anybody can track that back 2012, 2013. Now, around that time, there was this man called Tunde Ajayi that Don would often talk about. And there were various stories I had about Tunde, about his pad work and how good a trainer he was and this and that. And I'm like, okay. But I never seemed to cross paths with Tunde until an event that happened. I think it was Billy Joe Saunders versus Chris Eubank Jr., the first fight, where at a press conference, I think it was there, Tunde might have been there. If not then, down at the Peacock, we actually got to speak to Tunde. And that was when Tyson Fury was in final preparation to fight Derek Chisora for the second time. That's when myself and Tunde spoke for a while. And then, of course, I've been traveling, as you know. But without further ado, I am pleased to welcome back to BWTM Sports Tunde Ajayi. Tunde, how are you?
How you doing, man?
I'm good. Long time.
Long time, man. It's been a while.
It's been more than a hot minute, they say.
Yeah, as they say down in sunny Peckham.
They also say in Hackney too, you know.
Okay, yeah. Last week, actually.
Well, yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. We'll talk about it in a second. But for people who don't know who Tunde Ajayi is, I mean, there are some casuals that would say, Tunde Ajayi, yeah, that's the guy that trains Anthony Yarde, but that's not the only guy you've trained. So for people who don't quite know what you're about, just tell them who you are and what you've done so far and who you've trained.
Well, obviously, I've had a professional license 20 years now. This year is my 20th year. I'm calling it the vintage year.
Congratulations.
How fitting it is that this is the year that people seem to take note or know who I am.
Don't go there. I know who you were. Don't go there.
That's what I was about to say. You see, that's what I'm trying to say. In interviews, you don't let man finish. I was about to say, those that have been in boxing for a number of years are fully aware of who I am. You know, starting back from me working in the corner. My first ever corner as a professional trainer was in a Southern Area title fight with Spencer Fearon. And that happened to be his last fight at the Alexander Palace. Top of the bill was Dave Walker against Roman Karmazin for the European title. That was, I think, Mick Hennessy's show. And that was the first time I ever, as a professional trainer, was in a corner. So you can say that I was actually a championship trainer from my first ever time venturing in the corner. So that was, I don't know, Spencer can remind me how many years ago that was, but that was many, many moons ago. And it's been a fantastic journey up until this point, you know, working with many fighters, Danny Williams, Kevin Mitchell, Harry Simons, former two-weight world champion, you know, and the list goes on and on. It's been a real pleasure for me, you know, coming from the background that I've come from, and I'm just happy, and I'm excited about the future.
Now, one thing I didn't know is I put your name into BoxRec. You've boxed as well.
Yeah, 5-0 as a pro, so I'm saying that I'm undefeated, the only undefeated trainer out there.
But you can actually say that.
We ain't got no losses on our record. So we're going to keep it like that. We ain't losing.
So an unbeaten record, yes.
I had 5 professional fights. And injury and personal problems, you know, forced me out. But even when I was actually fighting, I was actually training. One young man that I trained, you know, won the national novices, got all the way to the ABA final, losing on points to Tony Bellew. So I was actually, you know, and at that point I thought, oh, I must be good at this, because I've never trained before, but I trained this young man who was a kickboxer all the way to senior ABA title, and we all know what Tony Bellew is today. So I thought to myself, if I could do that, you know, half-heartedly, all the way back then, the young man's name was Junior McDonald. I thought, you know, maybe, but at that time I still didn't really, you know, think that I was going to be a professional trainer. But then Junior McDonald decided to become professional, and he said the only person that he wanted him to train was myself. So that is actually, I mean, call it serendipity or whatever you want to call it, you know, that's actually how I got my professional license, because of Junior McDonald, and I'll be forever grateful to Junior for that, because, you know, look how things have turned out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Starting out, there's always somebody out there trying to tell you, you should do it this way, you should do it that way. That's not the way to do it. Clearly, from what people talk about and what you've done, you do things outside of what people say, and that's why you've been as successful as you have been. How have you done it, and why have you taken the road in which the way you have?
Well, it's a good job you mentioned that word road, because I'm from the road. And no one ain't telling me what to do. so it's like I came into the school, you know, I was actually training with a boxer, and I was like, oh, okay. So you know, I was a footballer. I was at as a young man, I was at few clubs, Carl Shorten, Millwall, playing football, and then I bumped into boxing. And so when I came into boxing, my initial thought was, okay, this shouldn't be too complicated. Who's the best? Okay, at the time, Floyd Mayweather was the best. Okay, who's his trainer? Okay, Roger Mayweather. Okay, well, let's copy him then. You know, like, it's not rocket science. Like, who's the best? And let's try to emulate him. You know, people talk about this copy business, but copying is a very foolish thing. You cannot be somebody else. So that's the first answer this copying question. The second thing is, I don't see that there's anything wrong with trying to emulate and trying to emulate and exceed, you know, someone that's actually great. You know, because I'm not here to be second to no one. I'm not here to say I'm going to be the second best trainer. I'm here to be the best trainer. So what better tutoring to do other than copy who, in my opinion, was the best fighter and the best trainer? So, you know, I went about meticulously studying tapes of Roger and Floyd for 10 years, every day, and I built my own system. But because, you know, it was so different from, say, home trainers in the UK, you know, I got a lot of flack for that. But again, let's look on YouTube today. I was the one who took all the criticism early days, and you know, I was the one who was vilified for doing and training people in a particular way. Let's say the Floyd Mayweather way. But look at every trainer today. Look at all the young trainers, and that's what I always knew. I always knew that. Listen, a wise man once said, "If you want to change something, fighting is not the answer. Bring something better, and eventually everybody will follow that." And that's what I set out to do. And I feel so proud and honored with myself that many trainers today, many kids today are doing this, if you like, Mayweather pad work, but it's not called Mayweather pad work, it's called System 9. And that's my name for it. So Floyd Mayweather is Floyd Mayweather, and I've always said I'll be I'll be indebted to what I learned from them. And me and Roger, there's, you know, it's on YouTube. Roger actually saying Tunde Ajayi is a great coach, you know, and that was back before anybody was going to Vegas. You know, I was going to Vegas and Floyd's gym right from Miguel Cotto camp. And so I was in every camp all the way up until the Berto and the Manny Pacquiao. I was there. I watched Floyd train. I learned, and I learned, you know, I learned my craft. I went to California. I stayed in Freddie Roach's gym. I've done it, you know. And when I was going to Vegas, I remember in Peacock, everyone was like, "You going to Vegas? You going to Vegas again? You Vegas?" But they didn't know what I was going there for. I was going there to learn. And you know, I always said that, you know, anything they can do, we can do. And you know, we've steadily built the Stamina for Sale brand, and you know, the future is bright.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot you've said there, and I can really understand where you're coming from there, because okay, from a different sport perspective, I could talk to you from, and it's the same thing. You've got people out there telling you how you should do it. You should only do it this way because that's how they've done it. But your success comes by doing it your way. So people hate you for doing it the way that you're doing it, but yet they won't open doors for you doing it their way. So it's amazing.
Well, the first thing is, I think hate's a strong word. You do get a few people, you know, I just do not actually see anybody that, if you want hate, I just don't see it. You know, I focus on the people that are positive. I focus on the people that are saying good things about it. Look, let's put it this way. I've only had 2 losses in 20 years as a trainer. 2 losses as a trainer in 20 years. So I think if people are really watching, there's something going on here. Kevin Mitchell was unbeaten when he was with me. You know, O'Hara Davis was unbeaten when he was with me. I mean, I can go on and on. Grant Ski, all these fighters, you know, they were beaten when they were with me. You know, so I have a system which I believe in, which I work diligently day and night to improve. And I really have no time for people hating, you know. And look, Anthony Yard is 13-0 with 12 knockouts. so I think that
speaks for itself.
The results speak for themselves. It's quite obvious what we like to do. We like to knock people out, you know, and we have a system which is doing that. And we've got a lot of young kids coming through the amateur system, and yeah, it's exciting.
See, the reason why you don't focus on the hate is because you've set up a system mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to associate yourself around people that that's because you've honed in, and like a magnet, you'll only be around positive people. That's fantastic. But when I'm trying to unlock the keys now as to trainers or people listening in general, not just about boxing, because I think boxing teaches many life skills that people aren't aware of. That
boxing is life and life is boxing.
Absolutely, totally agree with you there. What you're saying there, you must have come to a point where you said, you know what, this is what I'm going to be. I'm going to hang around these sort of people. I'm going to go and take this method. I'm going to take this approach, and I'm going to stick with it. Even when people are talking the rubbish, I'm still going to stick focused. What is it, and how was it you were able to get to that point before you were able to access the goods, as they say? Because you've got to put yourself in position first to access the goods. So what is your method of putting yourself in position, getting yourself away from that negative energy per se, and getting yourself into a position where you are able to really absorb the greatness that was around, whether it be Mayweather, giving you, you know, working with Mayweather in terms of watching him and being able to really study and really meditate on what they're doing to become the person that you are today, and add, because you've got your own flair on it as well. How are you able to find yourself in that position? Because it's a very, very unique position to be in, and not everybody does it. Most people fall at the wayside. So how did you do it?
One word: willpower. Willpower. That's it.
But you know what?
It's not complicated.
It's not complicated. It's not complicated for you. It's not complicated for you because you got there. And you know what? You are at the mountain top. But for the man that's in darkness, and you say willpower, that don't mean anything to the man who's in darkness. To the man in light, that's like, yeah, we understand that. But what about the man that's in darkness and wants to get into light?
Listen, it's like I tell all the kids that, and even adults that come to me, you know, for words of wisdom and advice. I say, look, you got one choice. One choice. Once you decide what you want to do, you're obviously aware there's going to be a force that comes against it. It's an equal and opposite force. So once you know that, the plan is to just continue, and don't give up. You know, and it's easy to say, oh yeah, there's some people that are in darkness. Listen, we're all the same. It's how much do you want it? That's it. How much do you want it? Because, you know, once you say you want something, you've got to realize that, listen, you can look at, you know, it's like, I remember when I first started, I used to hear people say, oh, he's not a good trainer, or like Adam Buford, he's not a good trainer, or like, you know, let's say Brent. I mean, I'm just calling these names because these are names like Brendan Ringle. He's not a real good trainer, or like Tony. But I used to think to myself, well, why are they there then? You get what I'm saying? Like, that's what I think. I'm like, yeah, I hear negative people saying he's not a good trainer, but I'm like, they obviously must have done something. There's obviously a reason why a particular fighter's with them. So I'm like, I took the positive outlook and said, whatever these guys done to allow particular fighters to get them, I have to follow them. If that means staying up all night and watching tapes, I'm gonna do it. If it means staying in the gym, go to Peacock Gym. Ask everybody who was there 4:45 every single morning for 10 years. Go and ask them. Go and ask them what car was pulling up and outside, and when Lynn and Ben and all the Pat and all them old people that some of them don't work there no more. It was me. I was the one outside. I was there. I was charging people £5 a session, £10 a session, £20 a session, and then I saved up money and I took my own money and I went to Las Vegas. I went to California. So that's the story that needs to be told. It's not, oh yeah, look at Tunde, he's all that. I worked for this. It never came by abracadabra or magic or nobody giving me no money or putting me in any position. And that's how I always like to look at trainers that were at the top. I say like, these guys work for it. And let's not look at it from a negative perspective and say, oh yeah, you know, they get to a certain point, then fighters go to them. No, like attracts like. It's a vibration. Good fighters want to go to good trainers. So if you're not good enough at your present status, then keep working. And that's what I preach. Keep working. When boys say to me, how do they get as good as Anthony Yarde? Keep working. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been in Vegas and I keep telling people, I've been saying it from the I think inception is the right word of Anthony Yarde. I ain't never seen nobody train as hard as Anthony Yarde. Never in my 20 years of boxing. And I said that I go and listen to the tapes. I said that go and watch IFL TV before Anthony turned professional. I told everybody this kid was going to be special. I told Frank Warren. I told everybody. And you know, we're not there yet. Obviously, I'm not. I mean, you know, we're not blowing our trumpet. But look, there's two ways. There's two ways. You can have a wait till someone gets to the top and then say, "I told you so."
Or you can tell them. Or you can tell them beforehand.
Tell them from the beginning. You understand? And I chose to tell everybody from the beginning. Now at the time, everybody was saying, "Oh yeah, another one Tunde thinks he's going to be a world champion." But every fighter I've ever trained, if they had stuck to the system, I believe they would be a world champion. That's just my personal belief.
You've said a lot of things there.
I got you. I got you tongue-tied.
No, you haven't got me. You haven't got me tongue-tied. You haven't got me tongue-tied. It's quite the opposite. There's lots I want to say, but I'm watching people's views here because there's comments in the room as well. So I'm listening. I'm reading the comments. I'm listening to you, and I'm trying to digest as well. So. Okay. So there's three things. Okay, let me give you some of the things that people are saying so far. Yes. DJ Slick says, Tunde, you are the man. Was watching you with Anthony on Box Nation YouTube channel the other day. Good luck this weekend. So excited for Anthony's future. He is the right guy for sure. Very inspiring.
Thank you very much, sir. You know, it's funny because I remember when Anthony first came to me through a friend who's an athlete, Jolene. With me and Anthony, will never stop bigging up Jolene because you know Jolene bought Anthony. Jolene saw Anthony at the old TKO gym, and Jolene was like to Anthony, "You know Tunde?" And like Anthony was like, "Yeah, you know, I've seen him on YouTube. He does all them fancy pads and everything." You know, and Anthony was like, and Jolene was like, "You want to meet him?" So Anthony was like, "Yeah, please take me down there." And so when Anthony first come, he was like, he wants to train with me. So I was like, "What you want?" Like, you know, what you want? I'm training a lot right now. What have you done in the school as an amateur? He said, "Nothing." I said, "Well, go away and win something." Who told me to say that? He went away, knocked everyone out in the box cup, and came back with a trophy and said, "Here, Tunde, can you train me now?" That's how it is. That's somebody who wants it. That's somebody with the mindset of Tunde Ajayi. And things happen for a reason. And if I had known what Anthony was actually doing in the amateurs, maybe I wouldn't even have sent him home and sent him away in the first place. Because now that I'm, knowing now, I didn't know Anthony was knocking people out in the amateurs. I didn't know that, before he went into the box cup, I think he had something like 8 fights and 8 knockouts.
Right.
Or 8 fights and 7 knockouts. I had no idea because I only focus on what's in front of me.
I remember reaching.
So
go ahead. Go ahead. You go.
No, so it's again serendipity. Things are meant to happen. I believe myself and Anthony our paths was meant to cross because I said to him, if he ain't won nothing, I just don't have the time. And he went away, won something, came back with a trophy, and lo and behold, from that way, and to further the test, I made him come to the gym every morning at 5 a.m. to train with me. And anyone that knows Anthony Yard has to say to me, I don't know how I managed to get that boy out of his bed at 5 a.m. I don't even think Anthony knows, because that ain't Anthony Yard. But again, when you want something, and this is why the first word I used when you asked me, what is it? I said willpower. And when a man wills himself, when a man says, I'm doing it regardless, you get the results that you're getting. Anthony done that, and then they went away.
That's a rare situation where a man has actually got the willpower to go out, do the business, and come back. That's a special individual, and that's rare, I think, today. I'm talking about a man who doesn't have the willpower or is in an environment where it's quite the opposite. I'm talking about a man now who, he's around negative.
Oh, I heard you. I mean, listen, I didn't misunderstand what you said. The point is that let's not focus on that type of individual. Let's focus on the individual that has done it and who will empower those that don't have the willpower. That's what we're about. That's what myself is about. That's what Anthony's about. We're about empowering other individuals to show them that, look, it wasn't given to us. I remember Anthony's first press conference for his first title fight against Chris Hobbs. And Chris Hobbs, even I felt to get up and slap him in his face. I remember he said to Anthony, Anthony Yard, the big prospect that's been given everything. And Anthony, I could feel the anger coming off of his brain. And Anthony said, let me tell you something. I ain't got nothing given to me. And he's true. That's the truth. Anthony never got nothing given to him. I remember I had 5 fighters. I'm not even going to call the fighter's name because they're no longer with me. And every day, out of the 5 fighters, Anthony Yard would have to be on the bag last before he got his pads. So Anthony would have to wait for a good hour and a half, and then Anthony would get his pads. So we would have to wait for the 4 other fighters, and then Anthony would get his pads. But guess what? That person who was last is now the first. And I've publicly stated, I will never train another fighter by Anthony Yard. I'm training Anthony, I'm managing Anthony, and that's how it's going to stay. And that's how it's going to stay. I don't even want to look at any other possibility. I ain't training, but I've got a team of trainers that would train the other young prospects coming in. But Anthony's my man, and I'm Anthony's man. and that's how it's gonna go.
Right, okay. So let me rephrase the question to you, because I'll switch it one way, I'll switch it another way, but I will find a lock to get the answer out. Okay. Now I'll come back with the question again. If a man is sitting on his armchair now, and he is feeling powerless at the moment, and he's listening to you, what is your message to him to get off his ass and get himself to whatever he needs to achieve in life? Let's try that as a question.
Do it. Do it. What do you want me to do? Give you a university graduate answer?
Well, you're doing better than most professors. So go on now.
Do it. How do you stop smoking? Stop.
Okay. I think you're off loudspeaker. I can't hear you. You've gone quiet.
Sorry, 1 second.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just do it. Just do it. You obviously, listen, the man who's sitting on his armchair, who's not empowered to go and do this, obviously don't want to do it. There's no two ways about it. If you want something, you'll do it. If you want a can of Coca-Cola, you go to the shop and you buy it. Because you want it. So that's it. You want it. How much do you want it? Look, you go in this social media business nowadays, Instagram or whatever, Twitter or what have you. Everybody is a world champion. Everybody. I don't think there's one person on Instagram that's not a world champion. But what is it that distinguishes the real world champion to the wannabes? And you know what it is? The real world champion wants to be a world champion. He doesn't just want to put on 60-second videos hitting the bag or hitting the pads in a particular way. And as I say, people can criticize my pad work, what I've done over the years, but look what I've produced. Akash Bhatia never won an ABA title, 12 amateur fights. Remember that number, 12, same as Andy. He won a Southern Area title with me. He won the Young Asian Boxer of the Year with me. Kevin Mitchell, term pro ABA champion. Kevin Mitchell won the Young Boxer of the Year with me. So you can see there's a pattern.
Okay, there is a pattern, but there also is another pattern, because fighters are leaving you. Why are they leaving you? If those stats don't add up, because you're producing great.
Why are they leaving me?
Exactly.
Why did they leave me? They're not good enough for me. That's the answer. They weren't good enough for me. Water finds its own level. And that's why an individual must always go on his own road and his own journey. One is not to look on the outside. No fighter had ever and will ever be able to discourage me, because I have a system which is constant growth. So even if a fighter was to go because he feels there's something better, guess what? Next week, next month, next year, I will become a better trainer, because I have a system that's progressive. And that's how I always looked at it. The people that left were not good enough for me. Not that I weren't good enough for them. No, you weren't good enough for me. So the one that's with me is the one that's shining. The one that's with me is the one that's on free BT Sports adverts. The one that's with me is the one that's sponsored by Maximuscle. The one that's with me is the one that's sponsored by Foot Asylum. The one that's with me is the one that's sponsored by Adidas. So I ain't worried about those that left. I ain't worried about those that left. They need to worry about leaving me, because I believe they may be sitting down regretting that they left.
So okay.
So it is what it is.
Okay, so then what inspires the madness for a fighter to leave you, Tunde? Because to me, listen.
Life is a journey. People that leave are not bad people.
No, we're not suggesting that, but we're not suggesting they're bad people, Tunde, for 1 second.
Listen,
but
you have to let me finish the sentence.
Okay, go ahead.
The people that leave me are not bad people.
Okay.
They're young individuals. They're young men. They're young men, and at times you've been young, I've been young, and sometimes when one doesn't have the right guidance around them, the grass may look greener on the other side. And that's why every single fighter that left me, I hug them, I show them love, I show them like there's no regret, no remorse, nothing like that. I always show them love because I realized, looking at my own life, that life is a journey. And so you have to allow people to make mistakes. Because guess what? There's a life after boxing.
Yeah.
There's a life after boxing. So I can't be there bitter and angry that people left me. But being a competitive man as I am, I'm like, you left me, all right, I'm going to make you regret that you left me.
Yeah.
But in truth, nobody left anybody. It's just everybody decided to go on their own journey, and that's everybody's right. So I just feel that, you know, this is boxing. It's not war. We're not in, this ain't no war. So, you know, any help. My old fighters come to my gym. They come to the gym. O'Hara came to the gym before he fought Josh Taylor. Craig Richards always comes to the gym. Craig Richards in the video. Otu, he comes. You know, everybody, they call me uncle. Because before I was a trainer to them, I was an uncle to them.
Okay.
See? So I don't have there's no bitterness between any of us. Everybody, and in fact, the fighters that left me are happy for me that this is happening. And they all say, we knew this was going to happen to them.
Okay.
We knew this was going to happen.
Okay. There is one fighter that I'm curious as to what happened to him. The Welsh boy you're with, very talented.
Lee, I mean, I don't know what happened to Lee.
Is it Lee? Is it Lee?
It was another case of he was with his dad, and his dad wanted him to, you know, go here, go there. Oh, you're talking about? Oh, listen, I've trained so many Welsh kids. I've trained so many Welsh kids.
No, the one I'm talking about.
You're talking about the wrong one.
Yes.
You're talking about Romeo.
That's the boy. What happened to him?
Yeah. Romeo. Oh, Romeo. Where art thou, Romeo?
That's the last time I saw you was Romeo.
No, give me a joke. Well, listen, again, sometimes the grass looks green. The grass looks green, you know, and again, it's a shame because I love that boy. Like I love every guy, because you know the way I train people is it's contact. You know, I'm a pads man, so anyone that does pads, any trainer that most of their training is on the pads, knows that you strike a relationship with the individual that you're working with, and you know, it just sometimes you can get overzealous parents who don't see, you know, the future, or they don't see things the way you see them. They have their own perspective on how their children should be trained. So when they see things going opposite to how they plan, they take their children away from you. And that was the case with Romeo, because Romeo loved to train with me, so much so that when he broke away from his father, he came back to the gym and asked me to train him. And I had to tell the young man that once you go, you go. There ain't no coming back with me. That's just how it's going. So I don't know what happened to Romeo. You know, there's another young kid that you know, a talent that I feel that went by the wayside, because he was very, very talented. Very, you know, I think that he could have gone a long way in the sport. They all could go in a long way.
I thought so too.
Every child that's determined can go a long way in the sport. They may not be pound for pound champions, but you know, they can be a champion of some sort. So with Romeo, it was kind of unfortunate. He came back to the gym, but I just think he couldn't get back into it. You know, because once you lose that momentum, that's why I don't allow nobody to come back once they've left. Because once you lose the momentum of training with a trainer, boxing is not one of those sports where you say, oh, let me come back. You don't come back. You get one chance at this, and you have to, the one chance that you have to use it to the full ability. And that's what happened with Romeo.
Okay, so now I understand where he got, because he went missing, and the other guy that went missing was Mitchell Smith, because everyone was talking about Mitchell Smith. He lost one fight, and he just disappeared.
Yeah, well, you know, listen, this is the thing about boxing. The road is not for the swift. You know, you have some kids that start off very well, you know, but as time goes on, you see the real dedication factor comes into it. And if boxing is just a fad, then you'll be found wanting. And this is why I've always known where I was going to end up. I've always known it ain't stopping me Tunde Ajayi is not stopping. I ain't stopping. Boxing is my life. It's all I know. It's not all I know, but it's not all I know, but it's all I want to know. If I want to be a doctor, I could be a doctor quite easily. My father's a chartered accountant, my mother's a doctor. I can be anything I want to be, and that's the message what I try to, portray. I just chose boxing, and because of my choice, I live it. And anybody that's connected to me is gonna be with somebody that they know is giving 100%. I don't have no part-time job. I just do boxing. That's all I do. I know boxing. I know boxing.
So I have to come back to Ahara Davis. When you obviously watched Ahara Davis fight Josh Taylor, and I'm sure that if you were training it, you didn't watch it.
I don't watch no boxer but Anthony Yarde. I do not watch no boxer but Anthony Yarde. And you can quote me on that. Obviously, you see the Instagram videos or what have you, or the clips. Yeah, fair enough. But I don't watch no boxer. I only watch Anthony Yarde. My house is full of Anthony Yarde tapes. 13 of them. My house is full of 13 Anthony Yarde tapes. Play and repeat.
Yeah.
Play and repeat. Play and repeat. And if I see anything, I'll say, and you know what? Boom. We can touch up on that. We can touch up on that. Let's do this.
Okay.
You know, and that's what I am to Anthony.
So you're Yarde obsessed then?
And that's not an obsession. It's my job.
Well, you have to be. Well, you have to have a certain amount of obsession to do that.
No. Obsession. I don't like that word.
well, no.
If you're obsessed.
Yeah.
If you're obsessed, you're addicted. And anything you can't control is an addiction. I can control myself. I know when to switch off the Anthony Yarde tapes. So that's Anthony will tell you, I'm the teacher, he's the student. But guess what? I always say to Anthony, I'm the student and you're the teacher. That's how it works.
Right. I get that.
We help each other. Andy will correct anyone that see me and Andy work. He was not shy in saying, "Unks, nah, man, you're not doing it right." You say like, "Unks, did you get your sleep last night, bro? You're messing up for the combinations." So it's like me and Andy have a really good relationship, and it's going well.
When I look at your relationship with Anthony Yarde, I also look at Adam Booth and his relationship with David Haye, and that was, as you know, it's a very successful relationship. See the similarities there, trainer and fighter really close and very tight knit. And there's very few, in my personal observation, there are very few trainer stroke mentors in the world of boxing today. Very few. Uncle James Ali Bashir, who for years has been like a mentor for me in terms of understanding the game of boxing, and over 40 years. One of the things he stresses out and keeps talking about, and he'll talk to it until he goes to his grave, is that today, the trainers today, a lot of guys just holding up pads, but they don't understand. They've got no lineage to them, because, well, okay, they're a trainer, but who trained them? Or where did they learn their stuff from? Or, he just, you pick up a pair of pads. But to have a trainer that's a mentor, that actually, back in the day where a fighter went to the toilet, the trainer's standing outside the toilet. You're in the shower, the trainer's outside the shower waiting for you. The trainer is everywhere you go, almost everywhere you go. So it's not just I'll see you in the gym in the morning and they let the fighter just go off. They are almost like a father to that fighter. Why do you feel that's important for you to have with Anthony?
Well, the relationship you just described, that doesn't sound like the relationship me and Anthony goes. That sounds like a dictatorship.
Hold on. What dictatorship?
Bro, I'm just being honest with you.
Well, okay. Wait, so wait, hold on.
No toilet.
Hold on.
I ain't standing shower. I ain't standing outside. No changing room.
Oh wait, hold on. Right, wait. Let's back this up a second. Hold on. You know what I'm talking about. You know that okay, maybe going and standing outside the toilet is a bit of extreme, but what I'm talking about is that the trainer has got his eye on that fighter to a point where.
No, well, listen. I think Billy Graham's quoted. I mean, I don't really watch. I've never been one of watching anyone but the top, and I'm not saying Billy Graham wasn't a good trainer, but he wasn't. I don't consider him as a great trainer.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean a great verse can't come out or a great word can't come out from his mouth.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly Billy Graham saying, if you have to tell a fighter what to do, the question is, how much does the fighter want it? And I'll never forget that. That stuck in my head, that Billy Graham said that. It was in a documentary. I think it might have been even a 24/7 or something like that with Hatton and Mayweather. But I remember him saying that, and how true that is. You know, I don't tell Anthony what to do. Obviously, I have control over the sparring, how much rounds he's gonna do, and what have you. But I like Anthony and any fighter that's under the Stamina for Soul ban to really be a man and take control of their own life. Who knows your body better than yourself? If listen, if the body's tired and you got your coach saying, no, you gotta do 10 more rounds, you can actually be doing more damage than good. So a fighter has to learn his own body, and I feel that once a fighter learns their own body, which takes time.
Yes.
You know, because you have to take sleep into consideration. You have to take diet into consideration and how the body reacts to, you know, I don't believe science does that. Science gives you readings, but science should be studying fighters, not fighters studying science. You know, and I just believe that nobody knows themselves better than themselves. So if I have to be saying to you, did you do your run last night? Did you do this last night? Are you doing your press-ups? Are you eating this? Are you eating that? That's another job in itself. That's energy. I ain't doing that. You understand?
Yeah, I understand you.
I'm teaching you the sport of boxing. I'm teaching you the art of boxing. It's not rocket science. You know you got to be a particular way. You know the damage one can do to one's body if they don't make that weight in a proper way. You know, these things, you know that if you have a nice vegan meal, you feel good. You know that if you have fat burger, McDonald's, you might not feel as good. I never said you won't feel good, because sometimes a fat burger or a McDonald's can make you feel good. You come in the gym and you feel like Superman. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is, in a nutshell,
until you get punched,
a fighter has to know what works for him and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's not nothing. You know, a trainer can have a visual eye and see it, but how many times fighters will actually agree with me on this? The trainer thinks he's had a good day, but the fighter thinks he's had a bad day. Then the fighter has you understand? Or the fighter has a good day, and then the trainer
thinks
says
he had a bad day.
A good day today.
Well, or you have a situation where a trainer never thinks you have a good day. He's always got a screw face.
Exactly. So, you know, it's about the thing is, you can only get that understanding in time.
Yeah.
And so, if a kid comes to you and leaves after 1 year, then you haven't really formed that relationship.
No, it's time.
So when you start going into 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, which is the 6th year me and Anthony are in today, this year, you know, you're talking, you know, me and Anthony started training in 2012.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're going into 2018, so that's 6 years I've been with Anthony almost every single day. So I know what makes Anthony ticks. I know what gets him angry. He knows what gets me angry. It's a relationship. It's a bond that wasn't there in the beginning. It's taken time to get here. So as I say, and as I keep saying, everything is timing.
Great. Now, let's talk about, just for a second, I want to talk about Mr. Eubank Jr. Only for the one thing is that he says, you know, well, Ronnie Davis says, well, I let him get on with it. Eubank Senior says, I let him get on with it. What are your thoughts on a fighter? I'll let them get on with it. Eubank, I don't need no trainer to tell me what to do. I do it myself. What are your thoughts on that? And how would that work in your gym?
So why is he giving him 10%? If he don't need a trainer, why is he giving him 10%?
I don't know. That's a mem, you know. That's definitely a mem. That's definitely a mem. Definitely.
Listen, you can't them tricks there. I'm not on them tricks. Listen. A burger needs a bun. A plug needs a socket. People make people. That's how this thing goes.
Well,
so I think it's kind of a silly statement to say I don't need no trainer. Well, guess what? If you don't need a trainer, why is he in the corner for? Why don't you just get your own fight at British Boxing Board of Control and go up in there on your own? Come on. You understand? Like, come on. I don't know who you think you're talking. I don't know. You're talking, maybe with an answer like that, you're talking to a particular set of people. I'm not on that. Everybody needs a trainer. That's why he's in the corner.
However,
that's why he's in the gym with you. That's why he's in the gym with you every day. That's why he tutored your father's career. That's why he's tutoring your career. What do you mean he don't need a trainer? Well, if you don't need a trainer, don't have one in the corner.
Now, there was a story that Adam Booth was training Eubank Jr. and Adam Booth asked Eubank Jr. to do something, and Eubank Jr. didn't want to do it, and Adam Booth was out of there. So is that any sort of indication as to the setup?
Well, that's not my. Well, to be honest with you, that's not my business.
Okay.
That's not my business. I don't know what Adam Booth was doing with Chris Eubank Jr. That's not my business. I'm focused on Andy Yard.
Okay.
I know that me and Andy Yard have a relationship, which is a 50-50 relationship.
Right.
Meaning that I'm open to anything he has to say, and he's open to anything I have to say.
Okay.
And that's Anthony Yard and Tunde Ajayi. Chris Eubanks, Ronnie Davis, Chris Eubanks, Adam Booth, not my business.
Okay, moving swiftly on.
I just answered your question about the trainer situation, and I think that's a very silly. I don't know if he did say that. I don't know. As I say, I don't know what comes out of Chris Eubanks' mouth day to day because I'm not watching Chris Eubanks.
Okay, Anthony Yard. So if you
Anthony Yard.
Okay, well if he's in a fight and he turns around and tells you shut up.
Who?
Anthony says he's shut up in a training.
Bro, me and Andy will be in beef. I'll tell Andy knows I am. I'll tell Andy to shut up. If he tells me to shut up, I'll tell him to shut up. That's how it's going. That's a 50-50 relationship. But guess what?
Yeah.
If someone really has respect for you, why would they tell you to shut up?
That's your trainer.
If you're a trainer, you tell your trainers to shut up. To me, that's a lack of respect. And respect, trust, and loyalty is a big thing. When you're dealing with someone on a level playing field, I think that's very disrespectful for someone to tell another individual who's with them daily. I mean, again, it all depends what the trainer's there. If the trainer's just there to collect his 10% and don't really business what the other person's saying to them, then that's his business. But no one ain't telling me to shut up. I'll tell you that for free. No one is telling Tunde Ajayi to. No fighter is telling Tunde Ajayi to shut up. Raw beef rolling around on the floor. We'll be having an argument. I just, to be honest with you, I just want to that had that kind of attitude. It's just not good. It's just not.
It's not healthy. No.
Conducive.
Absolutely.
To the way, and it's not healthy to the relationship I would have with anybody that I'm involved with.
Other thing, fighters having disputes with trainers and wanting to have fights with trainers in the gym. Lots of rumored stories and stuff. People getting dropped with body shots or fighters rolling around with their trainers. Where do you think? Where do you draw the line where it comes to a fighter resisting something that a trainer says? Do you think?
No, again, it's a relationship. Why should I listen? We're not these. And that's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes when I hear people say my fighter, someone actually said that in your call, and we had a big argument in your call at a press workout. I won't call his name, but the guy actually said to me, yeah, I was training Anthony. Anthony was my fighter. And I said, bro, sorry, I'm going into the street mode again.
That's all right. That's how I want it, bro. That's how I want it.
Sorry.
No. You can no. Keep it real. This is what the channel's about. Keep it real. No. I'm a Hackney man, so let's keep it real. Let's keep going.
Analytical. I can speak well. But sometimes you take the boy out of the hood, but you can't take the But yeah, and the guy actually said to me that, yeah, my fighter. And I said to him, hold on, what are you talking about, my fighter? Like, hold on, these are not robots. These are young men. They're individuals. I don't own nobody. Do you understand? Yeah. I don't like that word when they say my fighter. My fighter. Ain't my fighter. It's a young man that you train. He's entrusted you to oversee certain parts of his training. So it ain't no my fighter business. I just never agree with that. So
interesting.
I just believe it's an equal playing field. You gotta have respect for the fighter, and the fighter has to have respect for his trainer.
Very interesting. Okay, let's move on a bit. I was very interested to hear that you were in my backyard the other day of Hackney.
Yes.
Well, which gym were you at?
Well, it's actually it's called a Boxing Academy, and what a wonderful project that was set up by what's the lady's name? Is it Smith or Kane or something like that? But this lady for 10 years has been helping young people that have been kicked out of school and what have you,
right.
And actually had boxing and made boxing part of the curriculum. So now they can actually, if they're excluded from schools, they come to this boxing academy and they can do their GCSEs, maths, English, and what have you, and also do boxing.
Fantastic.
Frank Warren, myself, Anthony Yard, Daniel DeBoers, Martin Bowers, we all went down there, and the whole Frank Warren organization, went down there and showed our support because, sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, young kids who are not bad kids just don't have they can't see nothing. They can't see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And when you have young women like this lady who has taken her own time and really looked at the problem and done something about it, as opposed to just talk about it, you have to support that. And I went there, and it's really, really strange because we went there to, the kids wanted to show us, what they'd done in terms of what they've learned from the boxing and the trainers. And who told me to fast up myself and start taking one child on the pads? Well, guess what? One child turned into two child, then two child turned into three child, then three child turned into one teacher. I was training the teacher. By the time I left there, I never had no fuel in my body. So, giving back is a lot to me.
Absolutely.
Because I know what this is about.
Absolutely.
And yes, Frank Warren again is what's the word? He's an innovator. As I've always said, Frank Warren is an innovator. He's not there copying people. He's an innovator, and he's fully supportive of young people in so-called, I don't like to say ghettos or inner city areas. They're just areas which house young people that have gone the wrong way. And Frank Warren has given the staff and all the kids tickets to the show this Saturday, December the 9th, and it's a great cause, and I'm in full support of things like that happening all over the country.
Yeah.
I think when I was growing up and when you was growing up, Ingram,
yes.
We had youth clubs.
Yeah, we did.
Places where we can go and vent the energy, the
of
extra energy
course.
that we had. And there's not enough of that anymore. And I feel if there were more organizations like the Boxing Academy in Hackney,
yes,
things would be, I'm not trying to say it would be eradicated,
but it would help.
Would be a lot better.
Absolutely. I was part of an organization. I think a guy, his name was Wayne Llewellyn. I worked with Wayne Llewellyn and
Wayne, yes, I remember.
Yeah, and Julius Francis. We used to go in schools, boxing for schools. And
yes.
We went in schools doing the boxing, and then it ended up becoming one of the things, becoming the Frank Bruno Boxing Academy, and that was an amazing thing. You know, going into schools and reaching young people, and we saw the transformation of the kids who couldn't engage in the curriculum, but then afterwards being able to go out and express, you know, doing the bleep test. You see these kids, it's so much energy using the bleep test.
Well, I think. Fantastic, because you know, I think there's a stigma around boxing that it's a violent sport.
Yeah, of course.
But it's easy to look at the
negatives of it. Of course.
But there's so many positives about the sport of boxing. There's so many things that help young people and old people, you know, feel good about themselves, give themselves confidence. You don't need to punch somebody in the face to learn the sport of boxing. It's an art form that gives you self-confidence and gives you the ability to, you know, stand up tall, you know, and it's not there to use and start going and beating people up. No. We have the Queensberry rules.
Discipline.
If you want to take it to that level.
Yeah.
But I feel that in terms of fitness, discipline, organization in your life, and just getting a good sweat on, I think the sport of boxing is great for that. And as I say, when my system is out, which should be out by the end of this year, I feel it will go in schools, colleges, works, homes. It's great. It's
fantastic.
System 9, and the app will be coming out very, very soon.
So the locks, the many locks, Spencer Ferron was talking about the other day on Toe to Toe, who's actually going to be a guest on our show tomorrow night. He's a guest for our debate. And he talked about the many locks, and I had heard the myths or the stories, the legends of your various locks, and that was back in 2012. So however many locks you had back in 2012, God only knows what kind of locks you got now in 2017.
Yes, well, as I said, I've got a system of boxing which I could not complete. You could not complete, Spencer Fearon could not complete in their whole lifetime. It's an infinite system. It's a continuous learning program. And I wrote it. It took me 9 years to write. And that is what the 9 symbolizes on the stamina for soul.
Should have been an 8.
It's not guesswork. My system took me 9 years to write. And how fitting it is in the 20th year, my vintage year, the world is starting to know about this because it's dear to my heart. And I believe that my system is a form of meditation, and it can help very, very many I wouldn't say, I don't know if illnesses is the right word, but it can help improve a lot of things.
Yes.
You know, in a person's life. And as I say, it took me 9 years to write, and the system is over 10,000 pages deep. So that can give you an indication how many combinations it is.
I can believe exactly what you're saying, because when I'm speaking to you and what I'm picking up inside, the old spider sense is going, and I feel Bruce Lee. That's when I hear you talking. It sounds like Bruce Lee. It sounds like you've picked up, taken all different arts and brought it sort of together, and then put your own spin in it afterwards.
And I started, you know, Bruce Lee's one of the guys I studied for many years. You know, my system has everything in it. You know, Bruce Lee's one of the guys I studied for many years. And, you know, as I say, obviously there's the financial aspect to boxing.
Yes.
But for me, I remember when I first done, when I used to first have my T-shirts, I used to put on the back of it, it's deeper than boxing.
Yes, it is.
And it is for me. It's deeper than boxing for me. And this is why, again, nobody's been able to come with me and start, you know, offering me money, you know, for my services. It ain't about money. Well, it is about money, but it ain't about money.
Yeah.
If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, my passion, I've got a genuine, real passion for the sport. And I want boxing to be in every home in all the world. You know, not everybody's going to be a competitor in the sport.
Yeah.
But I just believe that boxing is a form of meditation.
Of course.
You know, and it can help, you know, on the contrary to being a violent sport. And, you know, a non-contact system, which is what I have, can benefit the millions,
now,
the billions, the trillions.
Let's talk about this for a second. I mean, when I look at boxing, a lot of the trainers, they do talk about the physical aspect, but there's the emotional aspect and the emotional and spiritual aspects that I feel that are.
Well, you just need to, sorry to cut you, but you just need to look at how many fighters literally go through mental health problems after their career's finished.
There you go.
So you know, I was actually sitting down with one of the bosses from BT Sports, talking about having some sort of, I mean, every other organization, sports organization has some sort of fund, and for retired participants of whatever it is they were doing.
Yes.
The only one that doesn't seem to have one is boxing. Although the British Boxing Board of Control do have a fund, but we need a wider fund. We need a fund where, you know, boxers, retired boxers who didn't have the advice. I mean, I believe from what I've been told that Barry McGuigan and a few others tried to set something like that up a few years back.
Yeah.
Unsuccessfully, and I put a tweet out a couple of months ago, and I was absolutely disgusted that you had fellow boxers. I ain't gonna call no name. He knows who he is. You know, saying that, oh, boxers are just bitter when they lost. You know, and I ended up getting into a bit of an argument with a guy, and I said, you know what? Again, you don't change things by fighting. You just bring it. You just do it. And that's what I've done with my system of boxing. I didn't really worry about the negativity. I just done it. So, as I said to the boss on BT, I said, it don't matter how many people have tried or failed unsuccessfully, I'm going to do it. I will try to set up out in all my power. You know, everything is timing. Set up some sort of fund for retired boxers who have mental health problems. You know, it may just be as a form where a thing where they have educational, because it's education. Let's not mince our words about it. It's education. Most boxers are coming from inner city areas where they use boxing as a way
to get out.
You don't get many university graduates becoming boxers, do you?
No, you don't.
So we're coming from the blue collar areas, you know, and what happens is that we all know that it's only a small percentage of people that make money from the sport. So the rest of the sport, a lot of them end up hopeless and with nothing to do when their careers are over. So we need to try and fix this some way, somehow. I can't say that I know how that way is going to be, but I've got a few ideas, and in time, I'll try my best endeavors to help these guys with mental health problems, because they're our family. Once you become a boxer, you're part of a wider fraternity.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you there. Okay, let's talk everything Anthony Yarde, because
that's what we're business about.
That's what we're business about. But I wanted people to get a bit of a background, a little flavour as to whom you are, and not just ram down questions about Anthony Yarde, because you are an individual yourself. So let's talk Anthony Yarde. Let's talk about, first of all, the opponent. So can you pronounce the opponent's name for me, please?
Nickola.
Yes.
Mr. Coca-Cola. NICKOLA SJEKLOCA.
Okay. Now, from what I've seen of this gentleman, Callum Smith fought him when he was on his 14th fight. So very interesting. Anthony's going into his 14th fight now. Nobody's, to the record, nobody's ever stopped him.
Yes.
But with the locks and the certain combinations you've got, a lot of people are expecting to see Anthony being the first fighter to stop him. Is that something that's top of your list, or is just getting the win?
Well, I guess if you ask Anthony, he would tell you that it's definitely added motivation for himself as a fighter, because again, Anthony's last opponent, Norbert Nemispati, won 6 rounds with Anthony Jarrell, who's only lost 1 fight in about 33 fights or something like that. I think he's fighting for a world title.
Okay.
And so he stopped him in 6th round, Nemispati, and Callum Smith stopped him in 6 rounds as well.
Okay.
Anthony Yarde, 12 amateur fights, 12 professional fights, stops him in 3 rounds. Callum Smith is a Commonwealth silver medalist. You know, these guys have tremendous amateur pedigree, and with 12 fights, he only had 12 fights as an amateur, and then 11 of those 12 fights were ended by KO. So Andy hasn't had much ring experience, and so to be taking on a guy that's fought 3 world champions and 1 world-class fighter in Callum Smith at this stage of his career with such limited experience, I don't see where any criticism about this opponent can come from.
No, actually not.
And not only that, in his last fight, he drew for the European light heavyweight title against Robert Stiglitz, who is again a former world champion. Arthur Abraham, Sakio Bika. These are names that boxing people are fully aware of. And you have a young man in Anthony Yarde who is taking on a challenge as this in his 14th fight.
Okay. So
this is big.
So this is big, absolutely big, and I looked at his record. For, this is. I have to say, I have to be very, very brutally honest with you. That last fight that Anthony was in was it Stratford? They were fighting. I'm sure it was Stratford he was fighting in.
Yeah, Copperbox.
Yeah, I was watching. I think actually commentating that fight. I said, you know what? This looked like a glorified sparring session. Yarde is making it look so easy.
Yes. Well, listen. So I mean, what are you trying to say? That I don't get. What is your actual question?
Well, it's not even. It's not a question. It's a statement. He made it look like a sparring session.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen. If we're good, you're good.
Yeah, that's it.
Alex Ferguson, the great manager who managed Manchester United, said, "If you're good enough, you're old enough."
Mm-hmm.
And so, is it our fault that we're doing the job what we're doing? You know, people talk about talent, but talent is only a pursued interest. Anthony Yarde wants to be great. He wants to be the best, and he's putting in the work sufficient to be that. So, if when he goes out in a contest, he's making it look. I mean, look, I've just told you, the last opponent went 6 rounds equally with Jarrell and Callum Smith. And yes, we made it look easy. But this is where this is why I feel that I'm in a great position, because I'm not only the trainer of Anthony, I'm also his manager. And I pick the opponents. I'm the one who picked the opponents. So, and I won't be rushed for nobody, because regardless of how easy it looks or how easy it is looking, I have to take into consideration that Anthony is still learning his job.
Absolutely. And that comes to my next point. Boxing fans often want to see a prospect, a guy that's, you know, knocking guys out. They want to see him fight for the world title, then his next fight, and then fight, you know, the pound for pound next fight, and then, you know, from Godzilla to King Kong, from King Kong to whatever, you know, and there's seems to be no sort of like logic or any sort of understanding that, particularly someone like Anthony Yarde, who didn't have a big decorated background in these amateur ranks, that in his pro game, you probably want to take him a little slower, even though he's very talented, a little slower, and still matchmake in such a way that he can learn on the job without the pressures of big, huge fights. And your thoughts on this, because there's a big thing about He should fight Buglioni. He should fight Burton. Why doesn't he go and fight Kovalev? There's some people that say that. There's that building process that it seems so much in the UK that we forget that there's the prospect, the contender, the champion, that whole road, that building of a champion to last for a legacy as opposed to lasting for a year or two. It seems to me, now forgive me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that there is a criteria or almost a strict line you're going to go by with Anthony because of the lack of amateur experience, that you're not ducking people, but you're meticulously guiding his career, much like I'm not going to compare you to Mayweather, because Mayweather had a decorated amateur career, but in the sense that he was still meticulous about who he fought and when he fought them. That's good business. That's a good that's business. What's your response to that?
Well, it's like I say, education can beat experience. Education, Anthony is getting the right education at the right time. You mentioned Jose Burton and Frank Buglioni.
Yes.
Well, Frank's trained by my close friend Don Charles, and Frank Buglioni was never in our radar. But seeing as he keeps on putting all these tweets and everything, let's have it. I don't mind that fight. I mean, listen, the starting bids are already at 120 grand. So, so it's only going to get bigger. So, if Frank Buglioni, and I said it publicly, we ain't ducking that fight. No way. We're ready for that fight. Ready for that fight. But you can't palm myself with Jose Burton because Frank Buglioni knocked Jose Burton out. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So we don't want the person who is knocked out. We want to knock out the person that knocked the person out that you're trying to make us fight. It's not. I say Frank Buglioni is not in our. He was never in our plans because, as I say, he's trained by Don. And I'm getting to the point now. I just want the fight to happen so I can go back to my friend's gym. It's kind of like a beef right now. Like, obviously, Don is looking after his charge, and I train Anthony, and like I can't be going to his gym. Like, I'm always in Don's gym.
Yeah.
But I can't be going to his gym while we're having this kind of, his fighter is calling us out. So I'm like, let's do it. Stop the talking. Stop lying to people that we're running. Anthony said it on numerous occasions. Let's fight. We ain't running. It don't matter where the fight happens. We'll fight. Frank Buglioni ain't beating at the yard. Listen. but if he wants to pick up the fight and if he wants to continue to build the fight, I do get that. But in my mind, there's nowhere else for him to run because we all know he's not fighting Callum Johnson. We know that fight ain't gonna happen. So who are you gonna fight?
Wait. Let's back up on that. He's not gonna fight. Why is he not gonna fight Callum Johnson? People would ask.
We know. Listen, people in boxing know that fight ain't happening. I knew the fight weren't happening. The first fight, the postponement, it ain't gonna happen.
Why?
Joe Gallagher will tell you the reason why. Don't ask me. Don't ask me. You understand?
Yeah.
Ain't gonna fight. So the fact is, look, he can have the danger fight for him against Jose Burton, or who else is there? Who else is there? So this is the understanding as to why you keep on saying Anthony Yarde's name, because really you are the British champion. Why are you calling us out? Isn't it supposed to be the other way around?
It is.
But you putting pictures on your Instagram. That's the obsession of Anthony.
But I have to be.
Like, nah.
I have to be honest. If I'm watching a Sky show, there's pictures of Anthony Yarde skipping. If I'm watching Box Nation,
you can't escape us. You can't escape us. We're everywhere. So we're in your dream. We're everywhere. So listen, December the 9th, my focus is NICKOLA SJEKLOCA.
Okay.
But after that, after Saturday night, I see that Sky done a big article on Anthony. yesterday or the day before.
Uh-huh.
You know, the Independent ran an article. The Times. Everybody's talking about the fight. So, you know, let's see who puts the most money on the table. and let's get it cracking.
Well, we have a unique situation. You're the manager here. Now, you're the manager of Anthony Yarde, so you can give me a little bit more because you're the manager.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And I've had other fighters negotiate with a certain promoter or not negotiate, but I've heard stories, let's put it this way, and they've turned out to be pretty accurate each and every time. From the rival side, how close was that fight to ever being made between Buglioni and yourselves?
Well, listen, the purse bid went out. I'll tell you how the story went.
Okay.
There was a purse bid that went out. No, the British Boxing Board of Control ordered Hosea Burton v. Anthony Yarde. And as a manager, after winning the WBO European title and capturing a top 10 ranking with the world ranking with the WBO, why would I, as a manager, go back and fight somebody who's just been knocked out in his last fight, who gives us nothing? You don't bring nothing to the table. Nobody's saying that he isn't a decent fighter, and nobody said that. But strategically, as a manager, it would just not be wise of me to do that. So we don't want to fight the person that lost. We want to fight the winner. We're in it to fight winners. It's all about progression. So after having a ranking so high, we wouldn't want to go back. And people have taken it as to say, oh, by saying we're taking a step back, we're rubbishing Hosea Burton. No, nobody's rubbishing Hosea Burton. I like the kid, you know. Nobody's, but that's just, you know. And again, you know, I get defensive. People talk about Anthony's opponents. Hold on. Can you go and look at Hosea Burton's last 3 opponents? Can you go and look at Buglioni's whole career? Go and look at their opponents. I never see none of them fighting a 13-1 fighter in their 12th or 11th fight, taking a title, you know, from somebody. I've never seen none of them do that. And so people talk about who's Anthony fought, but who have they fought is the question. Buglioni fought Ricky Summers. Ricky Summers refused to fight us. Craig Richard is not going to fight Anthony Yarde. So if there was someone on their resume that we wouldn't fight, they have to show me who it is, because we've proven that we've and now we're taking on somebody that has fought better caliber of opponents and never been knocked out. Frank Buglioni's been knocked out. Hosea Burton's been knocked out. This guy hasn't been knocked out, and he's only lost against world-class fighters. So strategically, and as a manager, you can see that we're doing the right thing at the right time, because everything's time.
Fantastic. That sounds great there. Suggestions that you're ducking. You might have heard that. Well, let's.
You know, when I hear that word, yeah, I just start laughing.
Of course.
I don't get it. Listen, listen, diamonds are to be protected. Yes. It's just a fact. Callum Smith was mandated to fight DeGale. What happened with that?
Didn't happen.
So now Callum Smith's a ducker? No. Joe Gallagher made the managerial decision to not take that route. That's what it's about. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that. You're here to protect. When someone places their trust in you as their manager, your job is to do that, to manage their career. So the casual boxing fan, the guy that really doesn't understand the sport and is looking at it from maybe a bird's eye view, can use the word as ducking. But it really is no ducking. If that's the case, you can say Floyd Mayweather ducked Miguel Cotto all those years ago. Floyd Mayweather ducked
Pacquiao.
Fighters that he could have fought years ago. Pacquiao, he never ducked it. It was all about taking the right fight at the right time. And you know, as I say, neither Hosea Burton or Frank Buglioni have a world ranking. The only fight, or Callum Johnson, for that matter of fact, the only fighter with a world ranking after only 12 fights, he had it after over 11 fights, was Anthony Yarde. And we still maintain that ranking today.
That's good.
So the ducking thing, the ducking question really holds no water for me. It doesn't. It just, what you mean is that there's a fight that you want to see and it ain't happening.
Okay.
That's what it means.
So tell us about any lies that have been thrown Anthony Yarde's way. Or
well, I don't really worry about no lies. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm in a truth game. We ain't worried about lies. We ain't worried about lies. You know what lies? You know what happens to lies?
Tell me.
They end up where they're supposed to be, in the bin.
So okay, it's no secret that you guys are on BT and Buglioni's on Sky. So
yes,
there's talk that, well, you know, he's with Frank Warren and he's with Eddie Hearn.
yes.
The fight wouldn't happen because Eddie and Frank wouldn't talk.
No, but hold on, listen, stop right there.
Right.
Yeah. Eddie Hearn offered us 100 grand.
Okay.
I think to fight Hosea Burton.
Right.
Yeah, because I saw the email. I showed Auntie the email. Frank Warren offered Eddie Hearn 120 grand to fight Frank Buglioni, and they ducked us. They ducked us, if that's the word you want to use. So, but now all of a sudden now, Frank Buglioni's saying, "I'm ready. But hold on. If we rewind back to the first tweets that Frank Buglioni said, he said, after I deal with I think it was Ricky Summers, Team Wise Guy are ready and willing to face Anthony Yarde. Okay, so you get rid of Ricky Summers, then you move the goalposts again, and you say the board have mandated that, so you got to fight him first, then you get a chance to fight me. No, Mr. Buglioni, no, Mr. Bugs. You get a chance to fight us. We don't get a chance to fight you. You get a chance to fight us because we are the name. We are the name. Everyone's talking about Anthony Yarde. So it's a fight that I believe, Anthony wants. I mean, Anthony's not really one for talking. I'm the one who usually has a big mouth. But Anthony, he's got Anthony upset. Anthony wants to fight. Anthony wants to fight.
Okay.
So let's not fool anybody. We're ready. So let the fight go to purse bids as it will, and let's see where it ends up.
So you're saying after this fight that you have on December 9th, and you take care of business, you would be more than willing to take that Buglioni fight straight after that. Is that what you're saying?
We're ready. We're ready.
And
we're ready. And I'm only saying this because Anthony said it.
Okay.
I'm only saying it because Anthony said it. I wouldn't ordinarily, as a manager and a trainer, talk a fight for somebody else because I'm not into predicting the future. I'm into letting everything happen as it's supposed to happen. But because Anthony himself was like, let's make it happen. That's why I'm saying, let's make it happen.
What's the relationship between yourself and Frank Warren and with Anthony Yarde? How does that relationship work?
Fantastic.
Great,
and that's how it's gonna stay.
Fantastic. That's great to hear because I've heard some very positive things about Frank, and I've had some not. But that's like with everything.
Well, listen, Ingo. Let me tell you something. Rumors are like the hair on your head if you're not bald, And from my dealings with Frank, in all the years I've known Frank, he's done things for me outside of boxing. From on a personal level. I've never heard this person that Frank is supposed to be. I've only met a gracious man, a man that's dealt properly, a man that is a businessman. Don't get me wrong. He's a businessman, and as a businessman, you always want the best deal for yourself. So it's incumbent on individuals to surround themselves with good business-minded people, and so it all turns out everything is negotiation. So in that respect, I mean, look, I never see no other promoter going down to Hackney, to the streets of Hackney, and supporting a cause for children that are kicked out of schools.
No,
I never see no other promoter doing that.
No, not all. And the thing is, I've heard lots of positive things also from Don Charles saying things about Frank Warren. I've met Frank Warren myself, and I've always found him to be a very approachable individual, very nice guy, and you know, so
yeah, you know, it's business. It's business. Maybe the bit comes from where fighters probably never had the right financial or business advice in the past and done a deal. They feel that maybe they weren't treated properly. But Leonard Ellaby, when Gervonta Davis was over here the other day, he said to me, Frank treated us very, very well. You know, and you have to listen to people like this.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely. I mean, somebody's commenting here in the room. They're saying, "Oh, yeah, that's nice to say, but Frank doesn't pay his fighters on time." I don't even want to get into that, but your Yard's manager,
let me tell you something. Again, I'm not in the he said, she said business.
Yeah.
I'm not in the I heard it from here business. I can only talk for myself.
And as
my check gets cleared when it's supposed to get cleared.
That's it. End of conversation. Done. Moving swiftly on. Good. Let's talk.
Yes.
Let's wrap this up. The next question is, and it's always the question. Oh, he's got style, but has he got substance? Can he take a shot? Can he go to 12 rounds? Of course, Tunde, this is your time to preach. So can Yard take a good shot? Can he come through a hard fight? Does he have a big heart? Or is he show or substance? Is he the real deal? Here's preach for me.
Well, the first thing is this. Every human being's got a heart. So that's the first thing.
Right.
The second thing is, Tunde Ajayi is not training Anthony Yard to see if he's got a good chin. I'm not training Anthony to see how good his chin is. I'm training Anthony to slip, slide, and hit you on the chin.
Or slip aside, stick to the side.
So left down to me, you ain't never gonna find out if Anthony's got a good chin, cause he ain't getting hit. Anthony ain't getting hit. I ain't training Anthony to get hit. If Tunde Ajayi's got anything to do about it, you ain't never, you, him, her, or whoever ain't never gonna see if Anthony's got a good chin. You know, and I feel it's kind of disrespectful to fighters when they say, has he got a heart? Because boxing is a brutal business.
Absolutely.
It's a gladiator sport. So when you step through those ropes, you got heart. How do you know you got heart? There's millions of people that don't even have the nerve to do that.
Of course. But when I ask you the question, I ask the question a very generic question because it's a question that most people ask the question. I mean, of course people say.
And my answer is, you ain't gonna find out. That's my answer. You ain't gonna find out. You're gonna keep on saying this kid makes it look easy. You're gonna keep on saying how good he is, how smooth he is, how relaxed he is. If it's anything
to do with you,
to do with me. Now that's not to say that situations may come about further in his career where we're presented with another situation, but we'll cross that bridge
if we come to it. Okay, but the question will be asked though in terms of durability. We know all the legendary fighters. We knew when Leonard got dropped, he got back up and he did what he did. We knew about Hagler's incredible chin. Pardon? What's that?
I knew how they get dropped. Touching no canvas. You can't put that in my head.
Okay.
See me.
Yep.
No negativity can penetrate my brain.
Okay, we're not being negative. We're just okay. Here's the thing that I was always taught. You know, when you get in the shower, you're gonna get wet. You're gonna get wet when you get in the shower. It's just part and parcel of getting in the shower. And when you get into boxing, eventually you're gonna get hit, whether it be in sparring, whether it be in a big fight.
Yes.
So the question still comes back. I mean, durability.
So basically, what you're saying is,
I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking. I'm not really saying. I want to know what you're saying. I want to know what you're saying.
Gets in the shower, he's got to get wet. Well, I might have a bath.
Well, then you get in the bath, you're still going to get,
I still might get wet. But the point is this, though. The point is this.
Yes.
Boxing is levels.
Of course it is.
Boxing is levels. The higher a level you get, the more of a challenge it becomes.
Of course.
Now, you don't become a great fighter not having a solid chin, not having a high IQ, not being able to go the rounds. You don't become great not having those attributes.
Okay.
So really, if what myself and Anthony believe he's gonna be, then those questions will be answered.
Yeah, but you're his trainer. Okay.
For now, how can you ask me about something that's never happened?
Well,
how can I give you a definitive answer?
Well,
something has never happened.
In the countless amount rounds of sparring that you would have seen under your tutelage, Master Ajayi, Master Ajayi, I must ask you the question. And you're being very diplomatic at the moment, which is making me want to prod even further.
Listen, no, it's not diplomacy.
Okay.
Look, Anthony sparred with, would you say Oval Mackenzie is a big puncher?
Yes, I would say he's a big puncher.
A very big puncher.
Yes.
We spar with Oval. We've been hit by Oval. You know, we've been in there with big punches. We've been in there with big punches. But boxing ain't about being able to just punch big.
Okay.
Anthony's a big puncher.
Of course he is. We know that.
So the likelihood is, before you test our chin, we're going to
test your chin.
So you know what it is. We don't
I know
things like that in our head.
Yeah, but I gotta ask the question. I gotta push. Are you pushing? I gotta push back a bit, and I gotta find out.
No. I like it. Listen, it's an equal playing ground, but I just won't. The reason why you asked me, if we go back to right at the very beginning of the conversation,
yes,
I've done things totally different.
Yeah, of course.
And I've ended up here. Now, part of my difference is I haven't conformed to the old adages about boxing.
Of course.
Oh, if he ain't got a chin, he ain't never gonna have a chin. You know, some people ain't got no heart. I don't believe that. I believe there's cause and there's effect. You may just not know the cause. You understand?
Yes.
Someone may be getting touched in the chin and going down. Well, guess what? Go and do some stand-ups, or go and run 50 miles, or go and do squat jumps all day long. Like there's a cause to why you're going down. Lack of defense can be one of them. Lack of defense. If every time you get hit on the chin, well, let's work out how to defend against the shots that are coming towards us. So it's all about finding out the solution and not focusing on the problem. I can assure you, tomorrow morning you're going to have a lot of fighters coming to your gym whose chin have been considered glass, knocking at your door asking for help. Well, guess what? Everything is timing. We will have a hope for them. We got the education. I keep telling people, we got the education. Dear me. We don't need experience. We got education. We got the education. So it's all about teaching people the right way, But as I say, Anthony Yarde is my man. Anthony Yarde is my focus, and it's been a fantastic, unbelievable journey up until this point already. A young man with 12 amateur fights fighting on a Canelo Alvarez undercard in a 100,000 seat stadium in Dallas, Texas. That is nothing short of amazing. It is impressive. Absolutely. Final question. And so we can only think about the good things. We ain't here, thinking about the things that may not be so good. Okay. Final question. Hold on. The things that may not be so good. Keep firing the questions, but I can do this. Hold on. Oh, wait. Let me rewind that. So you just said the things that are not so good. Yes. You just said that, right? Yeah. Well, you are telling me about the things that are not so good. I'm asking. I'm in questioning. That's what I'm asking. To me, Ingram, yes. Everything is beautiful. There is no problem in our team. Everything is nice. Okay, that's fine. Everything is nice. That's why we're always smiling. People message me you guys look like you're having so much fun.
Well, you are.
And I'm like, children learn better in fun conditions.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Learn better under a fun environment.
Tunde,
it's easier to learn if you're having fun.
Tunde, I wish I had you as my trainer. I really do, because I had a trainer. My trainer was Steve Robinson's ex-trainer, and it wasn't pleasant.
Oh wow.
It wasn't pleasant.
Some of these guys, they're too stiff, man. They're too old, man. They need to get. They need to look at. They need to follow the young people. See me? That's my secret. I copy young people. I follow young people. I like young people. They're full of life and zest and
absolutely,
energy
absolutely.
And you can learn a lot from young people.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's my secret.
I should have asked you this at the top of the hour. Was stamina for sale. What does that mean?
Yes, sir. Well, that is who I am. Stamina for sale is what was built 20 years ago.
Okay.
And stamina's not free.
Nothing in life is free. You gotta work for that.
Nothing in life is free. You gotta work for it.
Yeah.
You gotta pay for it.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right.
When I first started as a trainer, I was charging. It wasn't free. You have to pay for it. So I like stamina for sale.
Okay.
I was selling it.
Got it.
You understand?
Yeah.
And it's grown into something that, I'll be honest with you, I never ever imagined it would be this big. You know, and we've got a hairdressing part of Stamina for Sale now called Stamina for Hair. You know, we got an amazing announcement Saturday of the fight. You know, it's massive. We've got the educational part of Stamina for Sale,
brother,
which is System 9.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a lot more things that's gonna be. You know, it's a brand,
brother.
It's a brand, and it's gone into amazing something that I never ever thought it would.
Brother, I'll say one thing to you: legacy. I like the sound of it. Legacy.
Yes, sir.
You know, we're not talking. We're not building about. We're not talking about today for tomorrow. We're talking about for today, for eternity. And there's a big difference. And unfortunately, well, it's about building empires. We talk. Yes. You know, in our community in particular, we like to talk about building houses when other men and other people in other communities are building empires. We talk about building houses and quite happy with it. Building empires and building legacy. That's the only way we will continue to rise and have empowerment and empower others in our community. So I am just tip my hat to you, Master Ajayi.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome, brother. You're welcome. Now, I think we're coming to the end of the interview now. I don't even call it interview, it's a talk we've had. Have I missed anything out for now? Do you think? Talked about the fight, talked about Buglioni, talked about quite a few things.
Yeah.
Think there's anything I missed out? Yes, I do have something to ask you, actually. Let's talk social media. This should be very interesting. Social media. How do you find the social media today of people run up to you with cameras, camera phones, and asking you questions? Do you find the questions redundant, asking the same questions over and over again, or do you find them refreshing and challenging?
I like it. I just think, listen, you can be stagnant or you can move with the times. Mm-hmm. It's the age we're living in. Mm-hmm. You know, I've got a child. I've got one child, Joshua Ajayi, plays for Crystal Palace.
Wow.
You know, me and him, we're always joking. I always joke with my son. You know, and I get it. I understand the age. See, it's a new age we're living in. So you got a choice really. You can either stay old or move with the times. The times is a social media. This is a social media time. It's an age where you can do a video in your bathroom and become a pop star overnight.
Right.
So everybody's at it. Everybody, even I just feel that it's great. I just like moving with the times. Okay. In that respect, not with everything, because there's some things that are immutable. Some things are never going to change. Yeah. But where this social media is concerned, it definitely plays a part, and it helps fighters get themselves out there. I know we have used it to great cause for us and Anthony. You know, so I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the way things are going on.
I made a statement, I think 2 nights ago on my channel, and I said, on the channel, and I said, sparring sessions will be the next pay-per-view. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't think so.
Why'd you say so?
I don't think so.
Why do you think that?
I don't think so, because, well, why would you pay for a sparring session when you're not going to get the atmosphere you would get in a fight? You
would get that, but people seem to spend more time focusing on sparring sessions and rumors and video clips now that it's sensationalism.
Yeah, I mean, what people and what percentage of people? See, when I hear things like that, I'm saying, what people? You have to tell me, because it's obviously not no great numbers, because if it was, it would be happening. You never, it's like you're just gonna always have a situation where people want to go out for a night and be in an event. You know, there's nothing greater than watching your favorite fighter, you know, walk out into a packed arena.
Of course.
You know, you can't beat that. And I feel that sparring sessions are common. Big events are not as common.
But there's some sparring.
So that's why
I agree, but there are some sparring sessions that happen where you got one fighter sparring against another fighter. Like, for example, people are very interested, for example, like when George Groves was sparring with Eubank Jr., or when Joshua was sparring against David Price, or when Joshua was sparring Dubois. And I tell you, if you put those fights up on YouTube, those sparring sessions, they would get millions of views for sure.
Yeah, but well, I don't know about millions, but the reason why those sparring sessions came to note is because those fighters ended up either fighting or was talked about fighting. People get knocked out in the gym. People get beaten up in the gym every single day. It's been happening for hundreds of years, and but it's still not the same as an event. It's like it's like newspapers. People always want to sit down and read a newspaper. You know, although you can get everything online. You know, and I just feel that because sparring sessions can happen every day, but an event, an organized event, is not an everyday occurrence.
Okay.
And I just feel that it's too accessible for it to catch on to the point where people are gonna pay. Why am I paying for a sparring session for? Well, that don't make no sense. That don't make no, whoa, let me tell you something. You will not be getting no money from Tunde Ajayi. That's what I'm telling you.
Listen to me. Listen to me. I might not get money from you. Listen, I might not get the money from you, and I am not. I've got no business going recording anyone's sparring sessions, but
I mean, listen. Also, and let's get it right. Okay, so you beat me up in sparring. That don't mean you're gonna beat me up in a fight.
That's true. That's true.
Because there's a lot more pressure on a fight. You have crowds, people that are watching you, TV cameras. All of these situations cannot be replicated in a sparring session.
However, Tunde, there's one thing I will alert you to. The market today is dominated by the casual market. It's not dominated by the boxing know-alls, because the boxing know-alls, the promoters find them highly frustrating and know that they don't pay for most pay-per-view fights today. So, so the promoter will say to them, screw them, but the guy that's going to come drinking and getting completely drunk and bladdered, that's who they're going to look after. And the person that is going to...
I hear that, but I don't think it needs to be sparring. I mean, go and look at... Do you know how many views...
Yeah.
The punch video, when me and Anthony done the punch with the punch machine.
Yeah.
On Gimme, I think it's Gimme Small.
Yeah.
It's got like over 4 million views.
There you go.
On other sites, it's got 5 million views, 3 million views. Box Nation put a video up of us messing about the other day. There's world champions on that page. Our video is getting like 160,000 views. It wasn't sparring, it was just us doing what we do every day.
There you go.
So it doesn't need to be sparring. That's my point. It doesn't need to be sparring. I don't feel that it needs to be sparring. It just, when people see people having fun doing what they do, everybody wants to see it. Whether they're gonna pay for it, I don't know. If we had got 150,000 views, if they had to pay for it, because if they did, well, I'm in the wrong business. Because me and Andy been doing 10 of them videos a week. You understand? So when you start asking people to take their hard-earned money out of their pocket to watch a sparring session, I think you're going a bit too far now.
Well, 400,000 views IFL got for Anthony Yarde hitting the machine. So I mean, imagine. Well, that's the case. So if that's the case, listen. I will put my bottom dollar that if I could get a video of Anthony Joshua getting dropped by David Price, I'd make money off that video. If I could, I wouldn't, but I'd make money off the video.
Well, hold on, but we all saw Mike Tyson get dropped by Oliver McCall.
Exactly.
That never made up.
Yeah, but remember, you're talking about a different time and a different era. Social media social media is powerful today. There was no Twitter and Facebook back then.
But the footage is out.
Yeah, but there was no Facebook and Twitter back then.
No, but there's Facebook and Twitter now.
Yeah, but nobody cares. Nobody cares about Oliver Cole knocking Mike Tyson down because it's not relevant. But Anthony Joshua getting knocked down by David Price, people want to see that.
I see your point.
Yeah.
I definitely see your point.
Casual market.
People will pay for that.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, remember.
Let's leave it. Let's say this.
Yeah. Back in the day, people didn't think. Okay.
People are paying for that.
Yeah.
Let's me and you start a channel.
Yeah.
And get this footage out of here.
Remember, Tunde.
and let's make some money.
History serves us best when we research it. Now, remember, 20 years ago, somebody may have said something similar to you when you were going to Vegas and doing those things. I know it's at a smaller level. 20 years later on, nobody would dare say to you, Systems 9, what's all that about? Would they? Because it's proven. So this thing about the sparring, yeah, 5 years from now.
George Mendes said it.
Yeah.
And that's Ronaldo's agent and Dele Alli's agent. Anything is possible.
There you go.
Anything is possible. So, it's not to say that it won't happen or it can't happen. It can happen, but I don't know if it's going to happen in our lifetime. I know it might do, actually, because the world is moving so fast. It could happen.
It could happen.
And maybe you're right, but, the thing about sparring is you don't know when somebody's going to get dropped. So what am I paying for? Am I paying to see somebody get dropped in a sparring session? And then you're going to have the thing is, who's going to want to put their fighter in with a guy that potentially could knock them out for people's paying public, unless it's a proper event?
Possibly. All those questions could be answered at a later date. Just make sure it's not your fighter that's been caught in sparring, getting dropped in sparring. Make sure that doesn't happen to you.
Let me tell you something. Don't ever bring that talk around me. We're not on that. I'm not a believer of hard sparring at all.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that.
Of course.
I don't believe in that. I don't, I say in my time in Vegas,
yeah,
I didn't see Floyd spar hard. I see a couple people trying to come hard to him.
Yep.
And him just using his boxing skill. But generally, I never saw Floyd spar hard. I didn't. In all the years I've been going there, I've never seen spar hard. I've seen him have little competitive matchups and stuff, but most time he's bossing it because he's working on stuff. Now I don't know if that was the case early on in his career, but in the latter part of his career when I was there from the Cotto camp, I didn't see Floyd sparring hard. I didn't.
Interesting.
And that's what I took from it. That the hard sparring is not about sparring hard, because what you might be just doing is bashing up your fighter for when the real thing comes.
Absolutely, totally agree with you there.
So I don't believe in that.
Do you have a final message to the people that are listening today, and a message about the fight this Saturday night?
Well, let me say, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Talking to you and being on your show, I feel honored.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess me and you could have spoke till midnight.
We could.
You know, we're boxing people.
Absolutely.
But I thank you for giving me the platform. What I can say is that Saturday night, December the 9th, tune into BT Sports, Box Nation, and get your tea, get your biscuits, sit back on the settee, and watch the beast from the east, the man they call Anthony Yarde, against NICKOLA SJEKLOCA. It's going to be a great night for us. You know, I hope that we're all supporting Anthony in this his 14th contest. But thank you to all the fans out there.
Master Tunde Ajayi, thank you so much for talking to BWTM Sports. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Take care, champ.
Yes,
All the best. Bye-bye.
Great. Good night.
So there you have it, Master Tunde Ajayi. We go in depth on BWTM Sports. I pushed him and he pushed back, and that's just the way I like it. I hope you learned a lot more about Tunde Ajayi, the trainer. It was in depth. It needs to be in depth. I think we need to understand more the psyche of the trainers we have today, and you know what they're producing in fighters. And I learned a lot more about Tunde Ajayi, and gave me a great insight. And I look forward to meeting Tunde in the flesh, and Anthony, and really sitting down and chopping up with them again. So we've got a really good foundation now with Tunde to move forward with in 2018. That's it from BWTM Sports tonight. Don't forget tomorrow, the big one, the great debate, Lomachenko versus Rigondeaux. Bo Bland from Truth and Facts About Boxing versus Eugene from BWTM Sports, our Eastern European correspondent. It's Ukraine versus Cuba. It's a great battle we've got there. Great debate. We have Mike from Pound for Pound Boxing. We've got Gail Falkenthal. Fantastic to have her in the room. We'll be having Spencer Ferron from Sky Sports Toe to Toe as guest judge, and it's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. So 11:30 p.m. tomorrow night, right here on BWTM Sports. If you're in America and you're in California, I believe that's 3:30, and if you are Eastern Standard Time, at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night, 11:30 p.m. UK time. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the interview, and I hope you've learned a little bit more about Tunde Ajayi and Anthony Yarde. This has been Ingram Jones from BWTM Sports, and I'm out of here. Don't forget to hit subscribe and smash that like button. Good night.